Hi, this is just a quick little impromptu video that I decided to shoot. 2 days ago I had a customer bring into the office this NuTone. This is an IMA4006 that was originally installed in around 1992, and she brought it in for repair. As we were discussing it, she was wondering if, since I was going to take it to the shop and work on it, could I get rid of the yellowing that's on the front of the faceplate here? And I told her, sure, we can do that. So I thought I would do a quick video before I put it in the tank to do the re-whitening, to just kind of show you the difference in color of what happens. This is sort of a before and after video. How about that? So we've got the 4006 faceplate. It's been totally disassembled, nothing left on the back, just plastic at this point. And then her installation includes, these are, it was an extension frame that NuTone made. This gets assembled and it goes around the back of the Master, bring it out from the wall a little bit more, to give the installer a little more space when there's a lot of wiring. And this is, she told me, this is in her kitchen, across from the kitchen windows, and it's very yellowed at this point. So when this was brand new, this was called out by NuTone as being bright white. One of the things that makes it difficult in a video is trying to let you see the difference between what you're looking at now and what it's going to look like 24 hours from now. But as a comparison, let's go ahead and get these out of the way. If we go ahead and open up the doors on the unit, the reason that these yellow, and the reason that all NuTone faceplates yellow along with most other white plastic used in consumer products and consumer electronics, is because in the formula of plastic that they use to make the faceplate, there's a substance called bromide. And bromide is added to plastics to make it more fire retardant. And the idea of the bromide is, if you were to take a flame and hold it on the plastic and held it there long enough to make the plastic actually burn, the bromide makes the plastic self-extinguish. The flame won't grow and the whole thing won't become engulfed in flames, so it's mostly for safety. But the problem with the bromide is, when the plastic is exposed to the UV rays in sunlight, it very gradually turns the surface of the plastic yellow. And this was a problem that you see a lot in a lot of early consumer electronics made in the late 70s and early 80s, and it continued through with NuTone intercoms anyway, all the way. There was a big problem through the mid and late 90s, and then they began to put more UV light inhibitor in the plastic, which slowed it down, but it still has a tendency to turn yellow. As a comparison, if we take one of the extension frame pieces, if I hold it up like this, and I know this is hard to judge in the video because you're watching a video of it on your computer monitor and there's a lot of variations in that, but you can get sort of the idea. If I turn this over to the side that has been covered up here, you can get a sense of what's on the inside is still pretty much the original white, and you can see how different that is compared to the yellowed faceplate. Also, if we open up the doors at the bottom, the inside the doors, those have not been exposed to sunlight because the doors cover it up. So if we flip these open, and maybe it's easier to see if I hold it like this, you can see the inside of the doors. If I can get it out of the shadow, they're still very much bright white. And actually this part of the panel right down here, you can compare with this up here, and you can see how much whiter this is than this is. So this is what happens to these. You can also, let me zoom in and I'll show you a really prime spot where it's easy to tell. So what you're looking at here is this area right here. This is the part of the faceplate. The left-hand door is on this side and the right-hand door is on this side, and you can see how this part of the panel is white and this part of the panel is white, but you have this stripe down the middle that's turned yellow. And the reason that you have the yellow stripe is that's the part, it's the gap between the two doors. So if we close the doors up, you can see part of it there's a gap between the two doors, and that's where the sunlight has gotten in, and it's turned this little area that's been exposed to the sunlight yellowed. And that's a good indication of what happens to this. So, and of course, if we turn it over and look at the back, you can see the back is still very white because it's been closed up against the wall so it doesn't get exposure to sunlight. And if we take a piece of the extension frame and we hold it up like this, then you can get a pretty good sense of how yellow the exposed part of the plastic is compared to the part that's been hidden away inside the wall. So what I'm going to do with this is, the only thing I've done with this so far is I've disassembled the entire set and I've washed the faceplate because it's necessary to get any kind of surface dirt or anything off of it, because that will block the chemicals and block the UV light we use to activate the chemicals, and then the parts that are not exposed, they won't turn white. So this is going to go in the whitening tank. It'll be in there for 24 hours because that's how long it takes, and then when it comes out, all the chemicals will be washed off and I'll dry it, and after that point I will shoot the second part of this video and you can see how well it turned out. So I guess I'll see you in 24 hours. Hi, guess what? 24 hours has passed. Believe it or not, it's been an entire day since I shot the opening to the first part of this video, and our IMA4006 faceplate has come out of the whitening tank, and this is the follow-up video to it. During the 24 hours that it was in the whitening tank, every 8 hours or so, the chemical solution, a little bit more is added, and it's brushed and evenly distributed over the plastic faceplate itself to make sure that all the areas remain covered. And one of the byproducts of the chemical process is the top layer of the chemicals becomes a little like a crust sort of thing. I think it tends to dry out more than what's underneath it, so you have to sort of redistribute it and move it around to keep it more liquefied. Otherwise, it doesn't work as well. At the end of the 24 hours, I opened up the tank, took it all out. The only thing I've done to this since I took it out of the tank was I washed all the chemicals off of it front and back and just lightly toweled it off so it's not wet from being washed. And here we have the end result. Before I get into the detailed overview of how this ended up, I want to cover the reason why I chose this particular faceplate to use in the video. So we've been doing the re-whitening process here. I think it's been altogether since our very earliest attempts. I think it's been 2.5, maybe almost 3 years. And our process to do that and the chemical solutions that we use and all of that has changed from the very first ones. We had a lot of very random and interesting results, especially when we first started. The very first attempts we made on practice faceplate pieces and things like that to try to figure out the best way to do this, one of the common phrases you would hear around the shop was the term runaway chemical reaction. And we had a lot of really interesting results, and some of the early failures, and yes, there were a lot of failures, resulted in totally deformed and melted plastic faceplates because the chemical reactions were too strong and they weren't controllable, and there was a steep learning curve in the early attempts. And then when we decided to take it up to the next level, I guess you would say, and we got the commercial quality UV lamps and built the light box, that made the whole process a lot more uniform and easier to deal with. So we've been doing this for a while now. The tendency to make a video like this would, I think, usually involve choosing a faceplate as an example that would be the very, very optimal choice to give you the very, very best end result humanly possible, because of course people are going to see this and you want to give them, hope that something can be done with their faceplate. However, that's not usually the tack that I take around here. I'm not really big on giving people false hope or altered results or anything like that. I believe in fair and honest presentations on how things really will go in the real world. And the reason that I chose this particular faceplate, and if you forgot what it looked like before we started, go back and look at the first part of the video again. One of the things that we've learned about doing the faceplate re-whitening is, and it's actually pretty simple, the final end result of the whitening process, how close to the original color it ends up at, depends a lot how bad it was to start with. So if you take a faceplate that's only very slightly yellowed, you know, on a 1 to 10 scale, I guess 0 being perfect like brand new and 10 is so bad that you know, you want to take it out and throw it in the trash because it's so ugly you can't manage it. This faceplate, this customer's faceplate, in my opinion, was easily an 8.5 or 9. It couldn't have been much more yellow than it actually was. If you take a faceplate that is a 1 or a 2 on the 1 to 10 scale and you do the whitening, it's going to come back almost all the way to 0. It never, ever, ever seems to get all the way back truly to the original color, because I don't think it's possible to take it back that far. But if you start off with a very lightly discolored faceplate and do the process on it, it's going to end up really, really, really close to the original color white. So much so that you have to peer at it really carefully and try to really tell whether it's pure white or not, or just a little less than that. When you start off with a faceplate like this one was, and it's an 8.5 or a 9, you know going into it that you're not going to get back to close to 0. It's never going to be that good. It always is going to be have a little bit of coloration left to it. However, if you look at this now and compare it to the original color, it would seem to be pretty white compared to the awfully yellowed color we started off with. Hi, I'm back. So it's been 3 or 4 days since I shot the second part of this video where I took Linda's IMA4006 white faceplate out of the whitening tank, and I did kind of a review about the unit after the whitening was done. And when I was editing the video, I wasn't really that happy with it. It became kind of long and drawn out, and it didn't really make the point that I was trying to make. So I'm doing something today that I don't normally do, which is I'm doing a second shoot of the video. I guess in this case it's a third shoot, to try to point out the difference between what this set was like before I started and what it's like today, and what it's like today in comparison to what it probably was like when it was brand new. This little bit is going to be about the contrasting differences between what this set looked like when it was new, and I'm going to try to give you a better view of it, and then what it looks like today, and we're going to do that through comparison. Because I think comparison is by far the easiest way for people to tell the difference or the end result in what a process like this gives you. So what I found was this. This is, swoop this in here, this is a faceplate from an IM4006, and even though it's a different model, it's very similar to what Linda's 4006 looked like before I started the whitening process. And I'm not sure that in the first part of this video it was really that clear and easy to see, and I should have set it up somewhat differently, but now that the whitening is done, that opportunity has passed. So I looked through all of the sets that I had faceplates for to try to find something that was very similar, and this 4406 is very much like what her faceplate looked like before we started, when she walked into my office to drop it off to have it repaired. You can see how this was white when it was new. In fact, if we open the door on the CD player, you can see that it's not perfectly white inside here. It's discolored a little bit here also, but you can see here where the light has shone through the little CD reading door. It's even yellower, but this was a white unit when it was new. And so it's easy to tell if I slide it aside. You can see, and let me see if I can prop it up here a little bit without knocking hers down. So now I think you can get kind of an idea. I'll slide it down a little bit more. have it propped up here, you can really tell the difference between what a really yellowed faceplate looks like and what her faceplate looks like in comparison after the whitening. You can see there is a very dramatic difference between the two faceplates. But to be fair about it, I have a third piece I'm going to add into the mix to show you. So what I have here is, this is a white faceplate. This is from a remote station. This is from an ISA335, which is a white remote station that is from the late 2000s. And it's for the 3303 system. And this also happens to be a faceplate that was whitened. And you can see the hugely dramatic difference when I hold it up next to the 4406. It's still very yellowed. And you have to remember that, or think about that, the 4406 was this color when it was new. And you think, well, the 4406 looks awful, and the 4006 over there on the left, that's looking pretty good. But if we move this over here and put them next to each other, you can still get a better idea that while the 4406 or the 4006 is dramatically better than what the 4406 is, it's when you contrast and compare it to the ISA335 grill, you can tell this is a much brighter white than the 4006 faceplate turned out. So let's go ahead and get rid of the 4406 and unclutter our view just a little bit and do this like this. And I hope that it's easier for everyone to see the difference between what is really truly bright white and what we ended up with here, which is really more of a softer antique white. So I hope this illustrates the idea of the video better than me going on and waffling and trying to explain the differences between the two. I think maybe it's like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. While the 4006 isn't truly bright white, and I think I covered the idea that it never will be bright white again, the really soft sort of antique white is still a much better finish than the hugely yellowed color that it started off with. And also, I think to some degree, you know, products that were bright white was really it was sort of a 90s and 2000s kind of color. And I think in today's world, the antique white is still very nice. I don't think anyone's going to complain about this because it's not yellowed. It is white, it's just a slightly different kind of white. If you have a yellowed master station, you can contact us about having it re-whitened. I hope you found this video to be interesting and helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. If you like our channel, please subscribe, and we appreciate that. So that's all for today. See you on the next video.